We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Scholars of Wrestling Show, episode 347. Thank you for getting my pen out of the way. I am your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff. Joining me this week is the undisputed scholar himself. You know him. You know, love him. You know what he smells like. He is the undisputed scholar, Scholar Tarek. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing very well, and I should point out, if you enjoy what I smell like, well, good. It's a very nice, clean smell because I took a shower before heading over to begin recording. So I smell all fresh and so clean.
So fresh and so clean. That's how we like to do it around here on the Scholars of Wrestling Show. Not that you can not that you can smell us through the internet, but maybe hopefully one day when the put your pits down, sir. The technology does not smell-o-vision does not exist over across the internet. I hope it never does. But anyway, yes, we are the Scholars of Wrestling, and yes, there have been a lot of high points from this week in wrestling. So, what do you say we just jump right into this week in wrestling?
With how we just did our opening, now I just want them to open a scratch and sniff restaurant like in Rocco's Modern Life.
How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir? That is not wrestling. And for your information, no, I actually did not. I did not remember.
It's the one with Rocco chewing his fingernails.
Why do you
have your
about the fingernails, but I don't remember that particular episode.
Hey, Rocco, why do you have your hands inside of a monkey and a ham? What do you mean? I mean, what are you doing with your hands inside that monkey and that ham?
Nicktoons references. Gotta love them here on the Scholars of Wrestling.
I enjoy those
Scholars of Nicktoons.
I enjoy talking about that than over certain things that happened in wrestling this week. But it's the Scholars of Wrestling. We have to talk about wrestling. Even the good, the bad, and the
Monday nights.
Oh God, yeah. It's so disappointing that Monday is now back to being terrible shows.
Tragically.
After 2 weeks of actually pretty good shows. At least for Raw standards.
Tragically, but there is good news. Thankfully, this week we had enough good or at least interesting things to talk about in the world of wrestling this week that we don't have to talk about Monday nights any more than we need to. So let's skip on down to the first night of actual good wrestling this week. Tuesday night, Dynamite, Kick, whatever you want to call it. I'm blanking. Oh wait, that's NXT.
Tuesday,
I don't know what time is. Time is a flat.
Apparently not.
Apparently I'm not on it. This is why I need to keep scholaring my wrestling. So anyway, Tuesday night, Great American Bash. Whole lot to talk about this week. And honestly, this has to be probably my favorite night of wrestling this week. Thanks in no small part to the matches with the stakes for the Great American Bash. First and foremost, unfortunately, my boy Cameron Grimes lost to LA Knight. So now we have
going to happen.
Unfortunately, but now
it's just more.
We are going to get those
when he wins
those shenanigans.
It's just continuing build to when he actually does win it. And that's what's going to make it even more spectacular. They're probably going to do the whole him being the assistant for only maybe less than a month, just to set up their rematch for the $1 Million Championship at the Takeover before SummerSlam.
I was going to say, I've got a time frame in my mind of 3 weeks for this, and hopefully it doesn't go a week longer. Otherwise, I can see this getting kind of old very quickly, even for guys like LA Knight and Cameron Grimes, who are charisma machines. There's only so much this kind of thing I can take.
Yeah, but there's that. There was the Adam Cole versus O'Reilly, which will probably lead to a third match, even though the first one was a unsanctioned match, if I recall. So technically, it doesn't count. So in their first official meetup Adam Cole is continuing this winning streak, which people are now leading to the assumption that he may be the one to dethrone Karrion Kross as he leaps up to the main roster, which I'm perfectly fine with if it actually continues the O'Reilly Cole feud, which it would be a good crowning of the NXT Championship for O'Reilly.
Yeah, I feel like, given the role that Samoa Joe is currently playing on TV, I can't help but feel like they're going to do something very noteworthy with him. And I can't write off, even though it's not 100% that he could take the title from Karrion Kross. I don't know. There's still something weird about this that I just can't put my finger on. Maybe it could be Joe. Maybe it could be Kyle O'Reilly or Adam Cole Bebe. But there's not enough. Let's put it this way. There's not enough evidence for me to 100% put my stamp on it and say, this is who the next NXT champion is going to be. I just can't see that happening just yet.
That's fair. I mean, of all the people who could top it, it's definitely one of those two. I mean, other than just Karrion Kross in general, they're pretty much the big storyline that's happening in NXT. I guess another match that actually I roughly enjoyed, except just I just wasn't a big fan of the finish. Maybe it's just because I wanted them to win. Is the MSK versus Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher NXT Tag Team Title match? Again, probably just stemming from just how the last week's promo played out. I guess just the fan in me just really wanted Ciampa and Thatcher to win, but they could probably keep this storyline going. That they could have their rematch, but yeah, another great match between the two. Wasn't a big fan. It was definitely because it's also maybe just a roll up. It was more of a roll up pin than anything. That gives more of a reason for this feud to keep going. But because WWE's been doing so many roll up pins recently, I guess it's just now, I kind of need a break from it. Even the good ones that actually make sense in the long run.
Yeah, and I feel like this is definitely one of the good ones for me because I know what you're saying, Fool, about the too much roll-ups, and typically because of how they're used on WWE TV, I absolutely get how you would feel burned out or just sort of like about it. But given how good these guys are and the finish, I'll be honest, in this context, the finish didn't really bother me all that much. Like I said, I like both teams and I like the way they work, and I really enjoyed this match. And because everything else was so good and the pacing was so good and all that yada yada, I had no problem with the finish. And it's because of how sort of sketchy roll-up finishes are viewed in the modern day, I can see this going for at least one more match.
Yeah. Again, maybe it just stems from just all the roll-ups and crappy shenanigan finishes that could stem from it. I mean, if it wasn't so constant, I'd probably be in the same camp with you of just, yeah, it makes sense for it to roll up just to not have a solid finish that they could have one more go because, yeah, it was a great match. Great match between the two teams and can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely. But speaking of match series that seem to be wrapping up, we did have new women's NXT tag champions in Io Shirai and Zoe Stark defeating the team of Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. And honestly, as much as Zoe Stark hasn't quite grown on me just yet, I really like these two together, and they really surprised me by how good they are. And again, Io Shirai is Io Shirai, so it's no shock to me that she would find gold on her waist once again. And plus, we got Indy Hartwell and Dexter Lumis back together at the end, so all's well that ends well, I guess.
It's funny to have Dexter Lumis back. And then we had Tegan Knox return just so she could actually be called up to the main roster, which seems so abrupt. I bet Triple H didn't even know that was going to happen.
Yeah,
He was
I gotta ask this as scholars quick talk, regular talk. I don't care. Was I the only one who was really just sort of disappointed by the whole charging battery thing being spent on Tegan Knox? Because there were already a whole bunch of reports that saying that she was back and she was healthy again. She'd already showed up to work. Again, nothing specific about Tegan Knox. I'm glad the ladies are getting those big, bombastic, multi-week build-ups to a big debut. I love that. I just feel like I feel like it was wasted on Tegan Knox, and not that Tegan Knox is bad, but just the whole thing just seemed very sloppy to me. Like if this was going to be spent on Tegan Knox, I feel like they should have not let anything slip to anybody. So nothing slipped to any dirt sheets, any Meltzers of the world, and they just should have let her go out just totally new. So it should have been a much bigger deal than it was. And this is one of those rare times in my mind where an NXT debut or re-debut or return was just came across as very sloppy.
I guess it really didn't bother me so much. I actually thought it was very like I like the whole build of just charging the battery, and then once it's full, it's the big reveal. Maybe if Tegan Knox actually stayed in NXT, it like I probably wouldn't have been. I would have been like, yeah, it. I get what you're saying, but it didn't bother me as much. Maybe it'll just fit it into like just some new gimmick. What of I don't know. She's recharged. She's ready to go. Awesome. And then she
Yeah,
gets
she's ready to go to SmackDown.
ready to ready to go to SmackDown and have this whole build up. All in all, is for nothing. I guess it is because of that. Yeah, that part I'm kind of with you on that one. If it makes it does make the move up so feel so abrupt because it looks like just Triple H was having major plans when she actually came back. They were trying to set it up with her attacking Candice, but in the end, it doesn't even matter because now she's gone to Friday nights. Because
Yeah, I can't put it any better way than that. But thank you for that musical interlude because is the ideal transition to that damn Hit Road performance. Holy crap, these kids are fire. I love this. I just flat out, I mean, there's rap gimmicks, there's like hype gimmicks, and then there's acts like Hit Row who seem to come along just every once in a while, maybe once in a generation, and walk in like they own the place because they actually do, and they're every bit as legit as the characters that they portray. And I personally love this.
okay, I'm not gonna lie. This is the one part of the show I actually did miss for personal reasons, and I just was never able to get to actually watching it. But I have heard positive things about, just as you're saying it, that they were just so full of charisma that it was a very entertaining segment. And I actually am looking forward to actually watching this before, if anything, the next NXT uh, comes along. But I'm going to take your word for how much fun this segment was.
Oh yeah, if you have not seen it yet, and this goes for anyone watching, definitely look up their performance on YouTube or whatever, because everyone killed it. Everyone stepped up to the mic. Everyone showed off their skills. The breakout star by far was Isaiah Swerve Scott. Like
Well,
that.
he's
That
the
was
star of the stable. That's not surprising at all.
I'll tell you what, I was surprised just by the stories I've heard about how Hit Row came to be. Because apparently everyone else was already their own faction, and they brought in Isaiah Swerve Scott after the fact. He was like the linchpin that tied everything together. So I was like, okay. So to me, that says, all right, they just need a little something more for their team for TV, and he's just sort of gonna be bringing up the rear. He's just sort of like the technical guy that the NXT audience already knows, and okay, I'll just tie everything together, use him as a vehicle to bring up all the ships, so to speak. Now it's like,
Nah, he's the
oh
face of the
no,
he's the face of the stable.
oh yeah, they definitely, and even more so than the North American Championship. That performance was what elevated the entire thing up in my eyes. That's everyone is on a much higher level now in my mind, and it is awesome to see.
It kind of actually brings up a scholar's quick talk for you, fool. Because again, we know how great NXT shows actually are. Like when it comes to WWE television, they are the best thing that's happening, but yet they're still not picking up on the ratings enough to make that impact. What do you see that what they can do to actually bring up those ratings to make it feel like, okay, what uh what can they do to actually feel more relevant? Like
Are you talking about NXT being feeling more relevant, or Raw and SmackDown?
NXT. Forget about Raw and SmackDown. Um, NXT in general. It keep because in my personal opinion, it should be like in the same ratings level as AEW. They those two are literally the best wrestling shows that are being put on a weekly basis, and I feel like they should be on real equal grounds. And I feel like I keep repeating this, but it's because it's under that WWE banner that it's not that people aren't appreciating it. The fact that it's no longer on the network is where it really thrived more. So it made it feel special. And in all honesty, it's also probably because it's been put in the what is the name of the center they have it now? The
Not the Performance Center you're talking about.
the CWC.
Uh, I guess. I guess
I'm
it didn't
having a brain
stuck out
fart.
in my mind because no, you may be very well be right, and it's just not sticking in my mind because I don't know what CWC stands for.
I have to look this up. But I think if they get out of that particular venue, because it feels like, because it's so small and cramped, is that it feels more like, what's the word? Like not an independent, a mixture of like an independent show or some kind of house show. It doesn't. It's a great look, but it just doesn't feel special because it's just in such a small venue that if it was maybe in like one of the larger venues, like similar, like as AEW is getting back on the road, uh, basically if they were on tour just as much as Raw and SmackDown is going to be one starting next week. Do you think that could have helped? That could help with boost up some ratings for the brand. And as you're answering, I'm going to look up the name of the center that they.
Okay. While you're doing that, I will say that I'm not. I can't say with the utmost certainty that it will a change in venue improve the ratings because I personally don't. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that that's necessarily the case. That the venue itself is taking away from people watching NXT all the time. Uh, I personally like the small sort of indie hardcore like punk rock vibe that NXT seems to bring to the table. It seems like a genuine alternative to everything else that's happening under the WWE umbrella. But speaking of the WWE umbrella, I honestly feel like if there's one thing above all other reasons why NXT isn't pushing higher ratings, uh, I couldn't
Capital
quite
Wrestling
place
Center.
it. Oh, that's what that means. Okay, that makes more
CWC. Yeah.
sense.
So technically, I was right. CWC. I'm like,
All right, now
no,
I'll
I'm like,
remember
wait,
it because I know what it stands for. All right.
like, oh no, that's the Cruiserweight Classic. But no, it's
I know
Capital
that's
Wrestling
where
Center
that's
too.
where my brain goes to. But I'm like, yes, everyone's wrestling at the Cruiserweight
At the
Classic.
Performance Center.
Yeah.
Is yeah, Capital Wrestling Center at the Performance Center. At least, yeah. At WWE Performance Center.
Okay, then that has a name. See, we're always learning things here at the Scholars of Wrestling show. But anyway, like I was saying, there was another factor that was really kind of bugging me that I really couldn't place a finger on until, again, my favorite wrestling show other than this one, Busted Open Radio. Someone pointed out to me that because I'm not even going to use the word developmental system because I know that I don't believe that's a proper term for what NXT is at this point. I will use the word feeder system to describe NXT because even though you and I both know, and probably everyone who's coming across this video on YouTube, I think everyone would absolutely agree that the talent is there to make a full-fledged standalone TV show, wrestling show out of NXT. There's one major flaw that I feel is really crippling the long-term health and viability of the show. And that is everyone, or at least it feels like at least half of the roster is eligible to be called up to Raw or SmackDown on any given time. I mean, we'll get to that specifically in just a minute, but because people can be called up to Raw or SmackDown from NXT for any time, for any reason, or they can just be flat out released, because that's what ends up happening to far too many personalities in NXT. The going theory that I heard is that, which I personally agree with, is that because that there's almost like a revolving door, or there's a call-up system in place that NXT is used for, there you really can't get as emotionally invested in long-term stories and long-term characters in the same way that you can get invested with not just AEW, but any other wrestling show on the planet. Like even NWA Power, yeah, people can get poached by other companies, but for the most part, if you follow NWA Power or any NWA show, the entire roster is going to be generally the same over the course of several months. Again, Nick Aldis alone feels like champion forever, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion forever. Same thing with Raw, SmackDown, AEW, any other show out there. Like, yeah, you'll have some small additions or subtractions, but they're not going to be like major losses for the most part. There's going to be ongoing narratives throughout every single show. But NXT, especially if you're getting really invested in certain characters or something, eventually, no matter who it is, eventually your favorite is most likely going to take a hit. And I feel like in my mind, that's what happens to NXT, where they build somebody up, you get emotionally invested in them, and with a few notable exceptions of after you get invested in someone and their stock rises beyond a certain point, there's usually a pretty good indication that they're going to get called up. And then there's one less reason to tune into the show. What are your thoughts on that, Fool?
I can even go one step further with what you're saying, especially when it comes to the call-ups. Is that when the superstars are called up, their run in NXT actually means nothing, because
Exactly.
Vince doesn't watch NXT. He doesn't know what's going on. I mean, the perfect example of that is when they had the Ricochet, Aleister Black, Ciampa, and Gargano call-ups. God, it feels like ages ago. What was it? 2 years? Not even 2 years ago? When those
Let's
four
go
were
with
called
that.
up?
I can't remember the
And
exact chronology either.
at that time in NXT, Ciampa and Gargano were having a blood feud. and was possibly like the feud of NXT at the time. And when they get called up, they're being called up as DIY, as if what they were going on in NXT doesn't make any difference because Vince just wants the names to boost a rating. And once that, and do they have any plans for him? No. So it was just, oh, they're called up now. I mean, look at Ricochet. He was called up. He was one of the big names that was going on at NXT. And yet he calls up to the main roster and it means absolutely nothing. He's right now possibly one of the worst characters on the brand right now. His stock went down so low. I keep using this as an example. The NXT superstars who are being called up to the main roster is the little girl in a Goofy movie being dragged into the Possum Park. No, mommy, I don't want to go. And the Possum Park is the main roster. The little girl is the NXT superstars, and the parent dragging them in is like Vince McMahon dragging them up to the main roster.
Oh dear. Oh, boy.
Are you like, what's your response to that analogy?
It's not the I will say it's not the most accurate analogy I would put out there.
You wouldn't,
but
you
it
wouldn't
is a
say that
visceral one.
But come on, it's like the Possum Park. You're just thinking, no, I don't want to go because you mean absolutely nothing. No, and the
but then the bratty kid actually ended up in having a good time once they were in the Possum Park. So
that's why it's just that shot. It's pretty much the meme of them getting dragged into. So no, I don't want to go.
Well, Goofy movie analogies aside, I do think you bring up a very good point here, where the emotional investment is not paying dividends. I think that's the biggest problem with any WWE property, really, with the lack of continuity, bad writing, bad anything. Like I honestly believe that a lot of the writing and a lot of the bad booking decisions could be fixed if there's just continuity that makes sense and endings that pay off. Like there's been no bigger buzzkill for me this year. Again, not to go off on a diatribe, but this is just a big example I can think of this phenomenon.
Here's the wine box. Climb on it and go right ahead because I'm going to climb right after you.
I'll keep it brief. I'll keep it brief then. The Bray Wyatt Randy Orton match at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. There was so much build, so much hype. You want to see the big scary movie monster kill the final boy or whatever. You want to see Randy Orton get killed by a monster. You want the theatrics. You want Jason Voorhees to win. You want Freddy Krueger to win. You want Michael Myers to kill Laurie Strode for the 15,000th time. You want to see that, but instead, what do we get? We get Alexa Bliss with ink all over her face. And again, Bray Wyatt is my favorite thing on the show. I really hope there's some sort of legitimate payoff or real legitimate reason why he's off TV right now. I hope he's okay. But in terms of just the show that they're putting out there, the payoff just isn't there compared to the emotional investment I've gotten with the character. You know, I'm a grown man who bought puppets, for crying out loud. I don't even have any kids yet. This man is making me buy freaking puppets, and I want to see my big scary movie monster. And when I don't get it, I am ever so cross.
Karrion Kross.
Not even Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross seems like a good guy. But I'm like, this, just give me some payoff. Just don't treat me like I'm an idiot. And when you get that continuity in literally every single other competently booked show, even if they don't have the big star power, I get better continuity in NWA Power. Like, come on. I'm going to say it again. WWE has some of the best wrestling talent on the planet, but man, oh man, do they have an organizational problem? Get your act together, reorganize however you need to, and just let your talent shine. Just let the storylines and the wrestlers have their payoff. Don't treat us like we're idiots, please.
You're basically begging to a brick wall, unfortunately, because I 100% agree with everything you just said. Like WWE, at least the higher ups do treat us like we're idiots. It's they go onto the thing is it's not the customer who's always right. Oh, you wanting to cheer so and so? Well, let's go ahead and bury them because that's not what we wanted. I my big thing with WWE especially when it comes to basically the storytelling is that there is very little story to tell if your name isn't Roman Reigns. He's the only one that actually gets so much time and focus and character build and story build that it does get you invested in it, but then also makes you look at it like at first I love the Roman storyline, the head of the table, the tribal chief. I was all into it, but now I'm kind of done with it because a it's inevitably setting up for the big baby face turn that Vince McMahon wants. Now he'll be the star of WWE that actually gets, I guess, a legit crowd reaction. Also, it be the big difference between Roman Reigns and someone like Kenny Omega is when you have his title matches, he's even though he's winning, he's putting over he's making the opposing talent like Jungle Boy, Orange Cassidy, Pac. He's making them look good in defeat. Where it's like, okay, in the future, these guys could be world champions. These guys have put on such great things that it's at the time they look like they could win, and then it'll be inevitable that once they gain more experience, that they actually could win the AEW World Title in the near future. And then you have Roman Reigns, where when he has all the opposing forces, it's to make him look strong. It's basic. It's the continuing factor of. It's now back to Roman being on the infinite Mario star again. He's just basically mowing through talent. The people don't look strong in defeat. It's not like they're actually gaining a boost facing Roman and losing. Once they lose, they either go back to where they were or they get knocked a few spaces down. I mean, look at Cesaro. I was actually getting high hopes when Daniel Bryan was endorsing him before he left, and now he's now in a position where okay, he's not even in the Money in the Bank match anymore. He loses to Seth Rollins, and now again, Seth Rollins is the winner of their feud. So how is it? Why do you? What is now the point of getting invested in anything? Because all in all, it doesn't matter because it just constantly goes back to them protecting Roman at all costs. They want Roman to be at the level of John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, to where it basically buries the rest of your talent, which brings up the no, I do not want to restart. Damn message popped up on my laptop. Broke my concentration. It makes it now when he had that shoot interview where he doesn't see once you see like who can he see passing the torch to, and he's like, well, I don't see anyone capable of being at that level where he is, and I'm just like, well, there's an argument to be made with that because you have the talent to have someone pass the torch for Roman, but because they're being booked so poorly, like, oh, there is one, yeah, because pretty much Vince McMahon doesn't want anyone to be passing the torch. He wants Roman to look like the star of WWE instead of multiple stars that people can get invested in. It's impossible to get invested in anyone because either they're booked horribly or they just constantly lose. I mean, hell, Ricochet could have been a big star for the kids, and he's being booked like a complete schmuck and just constantly loses. Hell, he had a feud with Sheamus, him, Humberto Carrillo. There's like, let's have a match between Humberto and Ricochet. The winner faces Sheamus for the United States Championship, and they both lose by countout. So now it made Humberto and Ricochet look like losers because they're not worth Sheamus's United States Championship. But now Humberto gets a United States Championship next week because fuck, who cares about continuity and logic when it comes to this? Let's just throw matches together just to give something, because it doesn't need to make sense.
Well, I'll tell you what, to answer that one question you brought up of why get invested when it never seems to pay off, I actually have an answer for that. It's because that there are still those little nuggets, those little things that will keep tantalizing the audience, will keep like make you believe, even for just a second, for just long enough, that maybe even in the midst of all these screw ups and poor booking decisions, there's still something that can be done right. Now, as far
Well,
as specific instances, I'll get to that in a minute when we're talking about SmackDown. But before we move on, I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about one other good thing from this midweek in wrestling. Specifically, I'm talking about AEW, and hopefully they'll use him again. But the debut of Malakai Black, formerly known as Aleister Black, formerly known as Tommy End, due to what I guess is one of the biggest snafus in clerical office work history. Someone's getting fired for that. Break it down for us. What was your reaction to this one?
oh, I was happy. I was really happy to see him. I like that he actually kind of brought the look of when he actually showed up the last time on SmackDown and kicked Big E. He kept that look of like the dark eye, the dark the dark eye around that. But now he's working it on a refurbishing of his character, of like the video that he posted that earlier that day of like the devil made me do it. I'm actually really pumped. I hope it's not just he just shows up just to be fed to Cody Rhodes.
I somehow doubt that's going to happen, just given how he got there, especially a 30-day no compete clause that didn't get changed over. I think there's enough, not there's necessarily bad blood per se, but there's enough of a history there, enough of an already set up story and background that they can absolutely do something with it instead of just another person to feed to Cody, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And now we have another couple that is one WWE, one AEW, with Zelina Vega re-debuting on WWE SmackDown last week. So, oh well,
Double paychecks. Let's go.
Pretty much, yeah. But when it comes to AEW, it was just it was a great week. I'm glad that they're now touring again. I love the fans, even that one fat idiot that tried to go in and gets punched in the face by Jericho. I'm not invested in the Pinnacle Inner Circle feud anymore. Pretty much now my focus is just, I love the interaction, or very little interaction, between Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, just getting started on their feud. That was my highlight of that show. And then there was Malakai Black, because now he's one. I was really excited for what his re-debut in WWE, but now it looks like he's just pretty much moving that character to AEW Dynamite Kick. And of course, there's Miro. But was Miro on the show this week? I don't think so.
I wasn't able to catch all of this week's episode, but I'm pretty sure he was.
Okay. I honestly, I'm having a brain fart on that. But yeah, it's just really those three that are just my big focus. And then you can add Jungle Boy and Orange Cassidy, just because they're so much fun to have.
That's what Aunt Jay said. Seriously, I think they look good together. And
They
hey,
are a cute couple. They are a cute couple. But yeah, Dynamite was another great show. I really don't have any negatives or positives to say other than just it was just great show. I'm glad they're back on the road. It felt great. I love the blackouts during the show that just like was hinting for Malakai's Black debut. I like the him basically taking out Arn Anderson. I like that the small hint is that it's for the Team Taz storyline that it's going to be oh wow, I'm blanking on his name. Ricky Starks is going to be the one that breaks away from Team Taz other than Brian Cage.
I can definitely see that because at this point, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, I don't think they really need Team Taz much more at this point. Again, Ricky Starks can talk a mile a minute, and Brian Cage looks like Brian Cage. I mean,
I could see Brian Cage still being a part of Team Taz. It's just this is them basically turning Team Taz into basically a face team. But hell,
I can see that. I mean,
I can
even outside of the two of them, the other two guys, Powerhouse Hobbs has enough to speak for himself, and Hook, from what I've been reading, is more than capable of holding his own. He's got his own little thing going for himself. So it's even if they do split off from Team Taz and you just go down to a tag team, that there's no slouches there.
Yeah. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I kind of want them to pull what they're doing with LA Knight and Cameron Grimes and just having Ricky Starks take the FTW championship away from Team Taz, just to build some suspense and some credibility with that stupid title.
You know what? I actually want to see. If they do end up splitting those two off from Team Taz, I can see Ricky Starks taking the FTW title, and then Brian Cage going off to feud with Miro for the TNT Championship. One big heel Hoss, one big face Hoss battle. Boom.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one to see.
And I just pulled that out of my butt. I'm sure they've got other better ideas.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, that's like just the real. That's all I really got for AEW, and then Britt Baker doing a dig at WWE Saudi Arabia. Other than that, I really got nothing.
Hey, that's enough, honestly.
But yeah, I'm not. I feel like I'm coming off as if I'm saying I didn't enjoy it. Complete opposite. I actually did enjoy. I did enjoy the show a lot.
I was gonna say it's not the impression I got.
I don't know. I guess just how I'm saying it. I guess I feel like I'm saying it as kind of like, oh yeah, it happened. Oh well, it didn't interest me, but no, it really did. And that's just the one. That's just like the one big difference that I have like compared to like a WWE show is that I'm actually excited where they're gonna go. I mean, I'm excited what they're doing with certain things like in NXT. The only real good thing I have on Raw is just I like what they're doing with Riddle. And I kind of don't have anything on SmackDown right now.
Well, on that note, let's talk about what SmackDown did do right, or at least did enough to keep it interesting, at least for me. And not long into the show, they threw a new women's tag team in the mix. Direct from NXT, we got called up for the first time Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Knox as a tag team. They immediately beat Natalya and Tamina, and they actually they're debuting under the name Shotzi and Knox, which I'll be honest with you, I don't hate this team name.
Is it the team name or they just dropped the Blackheart and they dropped the Tegan? and it's just they're going to be known as Shotzi and Knox.
That's what they were announced as, and that's what their nameplate on the screen showed up as.
And
Again,
then Ember
it's
Moon is like, "Oh no, you're still going to stay in NXT. We'll break up your tag team for this one."
but you know what? I think they just see a lot more promise for Ember Moon on NXT as a singles lady. But
She
whatever
sure
the
as hell
case
didn't do anything
is,
on the main roster.
yeah, and even if that is the case, no matter what the actual reason ends up being, they had a good showing for themselves, and the name shortening didn't seem all that heinous to me anyway. And they had a good showing for themselves. And I like the name Shotzi and Knox. It sounds like a buddy cop movie. I dig it.
As long as they drop the Mandy Rose Dana Brooke storyline, yeah, and just let's just throw the tag team titles to them because that's the only way. Because Tamina and Natty are not interesting at all as women's tag team champions. They are boring. They're stale as bread.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before Shotzi and Knox end up taking it. Maybe at Money in the Bank, maybe at SummerSlam. Who knows? But I think it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Let's hope
But
so.
speaking of sooner rather than later, here's another thing to sort of bring eyes back on the show. Tony Storm is getting called up to SmackDown. Tony Storm. Say something so the camera can switch over to you, fool.
No, it's like, no. I'll have it go back to you because just keep that awkward silence. Tony Storm.
Tony Storm. And you know what? Tony does not deserve that kind of a treatment of just giving like Adam Rose.
But she probably is gonna get. I mean, like they're actually gonna do anything with her, really.
They might. I mean,
when it comes to main roster call-ups, the main roster doesn't have a good track record of main roster of NXT call-ups. So booster rating, yay!
Hey, they have an attractive female who can wrestle. They can do something with her.
In a division they don't give two shits about. At least Vince McMahon doesn't. Hell, I'm not even like, it's probably not going to be any different when Becky comes back, whenever the hell that is.
You had me until the Becky comment because I feel like Becky Lynch still has a lot of value to WWE as a whole.
Probably, but it's just it's going to be one of those things where, all right, Becky Lynch is back. Isn't she cool like she was when she left? Now she's a mom. Now you got to respect her because she's a mom. You got to be nice. You got to be nice because she's a mom now. You got to respect the mom.
Irish MILF. I will respect that mom.
I feel like that's more of a Brian thing. That's a Brian response.
There are many people who can respect that kind of a lady. But you know what? Even if they're just saving everything good from the women's division for her, thankfully there's enough time with her away from the spotlight that things will be fresh again. It'll be a whole new landscape for her now. I think it'll be a lot better than there's been enough time away to make the heart grow fonder. So I'm actually looking forward to the eventual return of Becky Lynch. Hopefully it won't be as straight up cut and dry and super Becky that was right before she left. But
oh no, it's probably going to be worse now when she's back. She's going to be like super Becky. No one can touch her other than probably Charlotte. They're going to be in their own league. They're probably even going to save Charlotte winning the championship just so she can feud with Becky when she comes back, when the crowd comes back. She's probably going to show up at Money in the Bank, the first show that they actually going to have the. No, that's wrong. I think SmackDown is the first show that's going to have a live crowd. But they're saving for Money in the Bank for when Charlotte wins the championship, and they start feuding for the Raw Women's Championship. She's going to be thrown right back in there.
Hey, but speaking of how things are shaping up with the women's division, at least on SmackDown, as I'm sure you've heard by now, Bailey just got injured just today during a practice.
That's a sad thing.
Yeah, and they did have her briefly on TV just to cut a quick promo, and as announced earlier, next week for the live return of the live crowd for SmackDown, it's being moved from Money in the Bank to next week. We've got Bianca Belair versus defending her title against Carmella.
Because that's what the fans want to see.
It's not about it's not about Carmella in this instance. It's about a title match. And to be blunt, I'm not shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if this ends up just being a ploy to set up something for Money in the Bank, whether it's a title match or a vignette or something.
I've made this perfectly clear the last couple of weeks. WWE is going to have a real big problem when those fans are back. The fans are going to tear this shit apart. Hell, they're pushing hard. What's his name? The one who's feuding. Jackson Riker.
Jackson Riker, yes.
He is another bland character that they're pushing hard as like a big like a military man baby face. He's gonna get crickets. They're gonna basically like, oh man, what is this guy? Even the hardcore will be like, we know his history. We've seen what he's done on the internets, on the Twitter machines. We don't give a shit about this guy. Why are you making this guy a baby face when you actually drop the rest of the Forgotten Sons, who are actually the more talented ones? Ugh.
I'll tell you what, I don't know about Jackson Riker, but it does look like tickets are going fairly fast, at least if the recent SmackDown announcement of the Madison Square Garden show is any indication. I'm not sure if it's just because of the Garden, but it looks like tickets are almost already sold out.
It's probably just because it's the Garden. No, it is just hard to find any real investment to want to spend your money to go see this show when they're putting on this bad a product.
That's why the wife and I are not getting tickets for this one. We're waiting until we find out where SummerSlam is, or it's not SummerSlam, Survivor Series. And if it's nowhere near us, then we agreed we're going to look into flying out to wherever Royal Rumble is, just so we are guaranteed to get a good show, or at least something more interesting than a random ass SmackDown.
It's really just the Royal Rumble match in general. That's what makes
both
it special.
of them. I've never been to a Royal Rumble, and we're going to get two in one night. So it's like a surefire thing in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's the one show to go to, and yeah, same. I haven't been to a Rumble yet. I've been to 2 WrestleManias and 2 Survivor Series. I need to go to a SummerSlam and a Royal Rumble.
Well, hey, that's hopefully looking towards a much brighter future than this one. Before we wrap up, do you have any other parting words for SmackDown this week?
It's more just for WWE. If you want to bring back your ratings, if you want to bring people back to watching your product, don't just rely on what the network says. Actually think about, hey, you have a great roster. Actually push your roster to actually be entertaining. Don't throw repeated matches over and over and over again, and just crappy booking, crappy finishes, crappy characters, crap. Because it's not like they actually listened to what the network pitched before. I mean, the 3rd hour of Raw Dark, that went far.
Oh, we don't speak of that anymore. But we did speak about just about everything else this week. Those are our thoughts. Now we pitch it over to you, our wrestling compatriots in the viewing of it. What did you think of this week? Are the recent new debuts on SmackDown enough to keep you going? If not, what is, if anything? Whatever it is, we want to hear from you. So drop us a line all across the internet, whether it's YouTube comments, Facebook posts, and our personal favorite, the bitching on Twitter conversations. So you can check us out on all of our socials on Twitter, especially starting with Scholars OW for all the latest episode uploads every single week. You can check us out on our personal Twitter accounts. Fool, where can I reach you?
You can reach me at the Avataric.
And you can reach me at I'm Robbie Rage. Check us out, join in the conversation, and enjoy it while you can, because starting next week, it's gonna be time for Money in the Bank.
It's gonna be time for me versus Brian going for the Scholars of Wrestling Championship in the finals of the Scholars of Wrestling Championship tournament, baby.
And not just that, but everyone else is going to be scrambling for that sweet, sweet Scholars in the Bank briefcase. What's that all about? Who's going to show up to play? Well, you're going to have to join us next week, because you know who we are. We are the Scholars of Wrestling, and you have just been schooled. You're welcome. See you all for Money in the Bank.